Self-improvement has become a massive area of life for most men, but it has become dishonest. Everyone tells you to build confidence, be more assertive, stand up straighter, speak with conviction. And these things matter, partially. But here is what nobody says. Most men are not struggling with confidence. They are struggling with an addiction to approval. They have built an entire identity around what other people might think, and then they wonder why they feel fragile. This video is about breaking that addiction, not by becoming cold, not by pretending you do not care, but by building something stronger than the need to be validated. I was 17 the first time I walked into a real gym. I'd been working out at home for a few months, push-ups, a couple of dumbbells, nothing serious. I had put on a little muscle, but not enough to feel like I belonged. This was abroad. I did not speak the language fluently. I walked in and saw mostly middle-aged men, people who had been training longer than I'd been alive, and I felt like I should stay out of their way. I went to the treadmill, the safe option, the place where nobody looks at you because everyone is doing their own thing. For a while, I just ran, but the whole time I knew I was hiding. Eventually, I got off. I walked to the weights, and I picked up something lighter than I was capable of, because even in the act of trying, I was still bracing for judgment, still afraid of being seen as an ego lifter, still afraid of messing up. And then something happened. Nothing. Nobody looked at me. Nobody cared. The fear that had felt so real, so physical, had no basis in reality. These men were just humans, the same flesh and bones as me. They had started somewhere too. The relief was not just emotional, it was physical. My shoulders dropped, my breath slowed. The voice in my head did not disappear, but it got quieter, drowned out by the simple act of doing what I came to do. That is the pattern. The fear feels solid until you walk through it, and then it evaporates. At work, I found myself needing constant approval from superiors, wanting to be told I'm doing well, wanting the reassurance that I'm not failing. And you cannot deny that this is natural. Humans want to know they are on the right track. It is why bosses normally have more experience, so they can guide you, correct you, help you improve. There is nothing wrong with feedback. Constructive criticism, received gracefully, is how a man grows. The problem is when you become so attached to approval that you feel like you are failing even when you've done the right thing, when your sense of worth depends on someone else's nod. That is not feedback, that is dependence. And here is where discernment becomes critical. Some people in your life hold real power, bosses, clients, people whose decisions affect your livelihood. Ignoring their input entirely is not strength, it is foolishness. But there is a line. When disapproval comes because you have genuinely fallen short, accept it, learn, improve. That is the work of a man. When disapproval comes because someone wants you to compromise your standards, to say yes when you mean no, to shrink yourself, to perform a version of yourself that is easier for them to handle, that is where you hold. That is where you do not bend. And here is what I have learned. Holding your standards in those moments does not cost you respect. It builds it. People begin to understand that you cannot be easily swayed, that your yes means something and your no means something. If you are going to stop living by other people's approval, you need something to replace it. You cannot just stop caring, that leaves a void, and a void gets filled by whatever is loudest. You need standards. Here are mine. 1. To always be fair and just. Not fair when it is convenient, not just when someone is watching. Fair and just as a default, because that is the kind of man I have decided to be. 2. To act in line with the common good, not people-pleasing, not making everyone happy, but living in a way that does not make the world harder for others, contributing, not extracting. 3. To have opinions I genuinely believe in, and to stand by them. Not opinions that get me approval, not opinions I borrowed from someone louder, convictions I have tested alone, in private, and decided to carry. These are not aspirations, they are lines I do not cross. If I violate them, I feel shame, even if nobody saw. That is the difference between a standard and a wish. A standard costs you something when you break it. A wish just stings a little and fades. Ask yourself, what are your 3? Not what sounds good, not what you would put in a bio. What would you feel shame for violating if no one ever knew? If you cannot answer that, you are drifting, and a drifting man is easily pulled by other people's currents. Marcus Aurelius wrote something in Meditations that I keep returning to. We have such a short time on this earth. It sounds simple, almost too simple, but sit with it. You have a limited number of days, a limited number of conversations, a limited number of times you will walk into a room or a gym or a moment that could change something. And you are going to spend those moments worried about what someone might think? The person whose judgment you fear, they breathe the same air. They are the same species, the same flesh and bones. They put on their shoes 1 foot at a time, just like you. They have their own fears, their own insecurities, their own quiet moments of doubt. And yet you hand them the keys to your decisions. We do not have time to not pursue our goals because someone might disapprove. We do not have time to not say the thing, not take the risk, not walk through the door. We cannot truly live if we are constantly constrained by the shackles of what others might potentially think. The second best time to plant a tree is now. The worst time is never. When you constrain yourself to fit other people's expectations, you miss opportunities you will never even know existed. A door you did not knock on, a call you did not make, a life you did not live. That is the real cost, not rejection. The things you lose without ever knowing you lost them. In recent months, I have been working on how I interact with strangers, shop staff, clients, random people I encounter in a day. We build up this fear of being rejected or disliked by a new person if we are too nice, or not nonchalant enough upon first impression. We become scared of talking to people, hence this wave of what gets called social anxiety. But we forget something basic. They are just people, like us, the same flesh and bones. Instead of massively overthinking how someone might respond, what they might think, whether they will approve, remember that they breathe the same air. They are the same species. They are nothing to be afraid of. This is not about arrogance. It is about perspective. When you elevate a stranger's opinion to the level of a threat, you are not being humble. You are distorting reality. You are giving weight to something that has none. Walk into the shop, say what you need to say, be direct, be respectful, and then move on. Not every interaction is a performance. Not every person is an audience. Here is what happens when you stop performing for approval. You become dangerous. Not in the aggressive sense, but in the sense that you cannot be controlled. People who need validation are predictable. You know what they want. You know how to influence them. A little praise, a little criticism, and they move. A man who does not need your approval, you have no leverage over him. He will listen to feedback because he wants to improve, not because he needs you to like him. He will accept criticism when it is warranted, but he will not reshape himself to avoid it. He will be kind, but not agreeable, present, but not desperate, warm, but not weak. This is not coldness, it is solidity. The Stoics called it inner freedom, the ability to be unmoved by things outside your control, and other people's opinions are always outside your control. You cannot make someone respect you. You cannot make someone approve of you. You cannot control what they think when you leave the room, but you can control whether you lived by your standards while you were in it. The habits that actually change a man's life are uncomfortable, private, and slow. Learning to act without approval is one of them. It has no audience. It gains no praise. It cannot be posted. It just needs to be repeated. Stop waiting for permission. Stop softening yourself for other people's comfort. Stop handing your decisions to strangers who breathe the same air and will forget you in 5 minutes. You have standards. Hold to them. You have a life. Live it.